morning. My name's Kathy Bodine, and I am the director of the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering, and I'm going to lead our session this morning. And we cannot thank you enough for becoming a tech mentor with us. We're very excited about this program, and you are our inaugural group. So we're going to have lots of questions for you in terms of our training and all that stuff, and we'll talk more about that as we go through today. So what do we want to accomplish for our first session of training? We want you to understand the overall goals of this project, SOARR. And I should point out this was funded by the Daniels Fund, and we're very pleased and excited to have this funding because we know that older adults in Colorado and elsewhere struggle with technology, and we think this is a program that we hope has a lot of legs. And we'll talk more about that as we go forward. But we want you to know the goals of the project. We want you to understand the responsibilities of a tech mentor and what we're asking you to do. And then really to be able to apply the skills you already have and maybe a couple extra that we're going to teach you to help older adults. And also, we really are focused on value-driven technology support skills, and you'll learn a lot about that as we go forward today and in the next trainings. But the idea of really, as a mentor, really being able to support older adults in a way that works for them. And we know that from lots of research and lots of experience that teaching children and teaching older adults are not the same thing, right? And so we want to be focused on how we can help older adults really achieve success with their technology. And so we're going to start by getting to know each other just a little bit. And so, as I said, my name's Kathy, and I am the director of the program at the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering. And so I wear a few hats around here. Good morning, Dr. Shah. How are you?
Hey, morning. Sorry for joining late.
It's okay. You probably were out saving lives or something. So basically, the hats that I wear, I'm a professor in the Department of Bioengineering, which is in the College of Engineering, but we are located on the Anschutz Medical Campus. So we do our research and our academic teaching and training at Anschutz. I'm also the executive director of the Coleman Institute for Cognitive Disabilities, and that's an institute that is at the CU system level. It covers all 4 campuses, and our goals with the Coleman Institute are to help research and develop and commercialize technologies for people with cognitive impairments. So that's a fun thing. And then the other thing I do is I work with our Colorado Clinical Translational Sciences Institute to help faculty, students, and staff translate ideas from the lab to the marketplace, so that when we think about health outcomes and we think about our patients, a big goal that we have is to make sure that these wonderful ideas that our folks come up with actually get used in the field by other medical professionals, care providers, and certainly our patients. So that's kind of a fun thing that I do. So that's my little world. And I also am very excited about thinking how we can help older adults become proficient with technology. You may or may not know this, but Colorado is ranked 4th in the nation as the most, in terms of aging. We're the 4th largest population of people that are over the age of 65. So that's also kind of an interesting fact around Colorado. So I'm going to ask Maureen to introduce herself. She's my partner in crime on all of this.
Yes, hi, welcome everyone. I'm Maureen Malonis. I am the Associate Director under Kathy at the Center. And I'm also a speech language pathologist. Speech language pathologist. I've been with SIDE for 25 years now. So Kathy and I have worked together not only in this position, but at Easter Seals before this. I run the community programs section of our center. So all of the programs that have to do with connecting with the community, with increasing awareness about assistive technology and access to it. So it's a very broad spectrum of projects that I work on.
Cool. And Liz, who is joining us from Germany.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Kokenauer. I work at the Center for Inclusive Design as an instructional designer. So I just take all of this great information and try and distill it in courses and curriculums and training materials. And I'm from Germany.
Excellent. So Sean, I'm going to point at you next. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself and talk about your experience or what you know about older adults and family or friends that are trying to learn technology?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Polson. I'm a trainer. I work at Children's Hospital, Colorado. Challenges and successes, there's plenty with that. With my mom, different devices and familiarity and trying to start from a common place, right? So sometimes it's the terminology, sometimes it's different device, but can easily adapt to that and help her out, and have many neighbors that I assist too. So thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful, Sean. And Glinda. Oh, you're muted, hon.
Good morning. Yes, I am Glenda Nash Buscarello. I'm with Disability Resources and Services here at the downtown campus. And I've been here off and on for about 6 years. And I worked at Boulder, worked at CCD. So I've been at a number of higher ed institutions. But I also, one of my other lives, I worked at various low vision clinics, primarily the VA, with the VA, and I've worked with people who have low vision, and they tend to want to use technology, but quite often, and we served just many elderly individuals, but who can learn to use technology. So I definitely am a proponent of this kind of learning. I took a student over to the Apple store, and he was non-traditional, as we call them, in college, an older person who wanted to learn to use VoiceOver. And I can tell you that the people in the Apple store are not always very good with providing that training to that population. And most of the people around the table were in my age group or older, who were seeking advice and assistance. So there's a great need, just because it's technology is needed in almost everyday life for all of us, including the elderly.
I agree. And yeah, I had an 89-year-old neighbor who was learning to use his new Apple iPad, and he called the Genius Bar and he said, okay, I'd like to make 20 appointments. And he was serious about his 20 appointments. It was hysterical. I know he taught them more than they taught him, I'm sure.
Yes.
It was so fun. Okay, Mike, please feel free to unmute and turn your camera on and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Michael Koshik. I can't turn my camera on right now. I had to drop my son off at school. He goes in late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But for other people, I should be able to turn it back on. I'm a senior IT architect over at Children's. I've been there. It'll be 4 years this coming December. Been in IT my whole adult life. Other than a stint at the very beginning when I started, I was a bank manager, and I got out of that as fast as I could. As far as disseminating, giving IT help to older adults, I've got a mother-in-law who is constantly needing help. She's clicking on things that she's not thinking about, things like that. So just trying to take the fear, the magic box, away from it, and just kind of letting people learn to build some trust as to using technology as a tool, because really it's just a tool.
Yeah.
And taking that fear away, that there's something going on that they're unsure of. I've noticed over the years has really helped people learn to trust themselves a little bit more, and to not be so fearful that they're going to break it. Because when they're fearful they're going to break it, they usually end up breaking it.
Right. Yeah.
Especially with the whole COVID, the past couple of years, I think, especially with an older adult population, it's really kind of hit home for a lot of people. Like, hey, I really need to understand how to use this so that I can communicate more freely, have access to information more freely. So I think it's a pretty important and very appropriate time to be looking at this.
Thank you, Mike. And I couldn't agree more. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because it's so critical. Jackie, I see you came on. Please feel free to unmute and turn your camera on and introduce yourself.
Sorry.
You're good.
Hey, yeah, I know I just got the link not too long ago to join, so I'm sorry I'm a little late, but I'm an assistive technology specialist for a school district, but I'm interested in this program to see kind of what you guys offer for this population too. Thanks.
Awesome. We love having you. All right, Connie. Can you unmute and share your screen? Oh, she might have stepped away. Okay, so Viral, I'll turn to you. Feel free to.
Sure. So, hi everyone. This is Viral Shah. I'm an adult endocrinologist at the Barbara Davis Center and clinical trialist. I work in a space of diabetes devices and technologies in managing type 1 diabetes. And even though by degree it's an adult, but I call it a geriatric type 1 specialist because I see a lot of older adults with type 1 diabetes and a struggle of using them different devices. And, you know, Mike mentioned about COVID time. So when we switched to telemedicine, we know that how hard it was for an older adults to join, even turn on the camera.
Yes.
And, you know, complete the telemedicine visit. So I think it just made me even more committed to do something in this age group to improve their health. And so I have collaborated with Kathy on, you know, a project too, and happy to hear.
Thank you, Vera. Yes. And telemedicine was also a driving force for this Daniels Fund project, and we'll talk more about that as we go forward. So let's see. Connie, are you back?
Kathy, she got a message that she can't unmute, but let me see if I can, if I ask her to unmute, try that. Try it now, Connie. Does that work? Should be able to.
Huh. Well, we'll go on to John. Welcome, John. Would you like to turn your camera on and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm John Rodwick. I live in Fruita, Colorado, and I'm a retired clinical and organizational psychologist and former university dean and college vice president. I'm currently working with AARP Colorado with the area agency on aging for the Northwest Division. And I work with many seniors who are very reluctant to use technology. And I thought that this would be a good opportunity to learn a little bit more about how to help them become more familiar with the technology that they are constantly being challenged with.
Oh, that's awesome, John. Welcome. Thank you so much. Connie, I'm so sorry. It looks like you're still muted. We're thrilled you're here. I'm glad you can at least hear us, and hopefully we'll figure the technical challenge out as we go along. Great example of technology in action, right? So this, you guys are fantastic. And I'm so excited to have you in this group because each of you are bringing so many different skills to the table that it's really cool. And I will warn you for today anyway, most of what we're going to talk about today, I think you guys already know. But it's an important point in our orientation in terms of active listening and things like that we'll talk about with older adults. But we wanted to have everyone on the same baseline as we go forward with this tech mentor training. So what is Project SOARR? And the whole idea is everything that you guys just said. We really want to help our older adults across Colorado to learn to use the technology they have. And we know just in our everyday jobs, like we were complaining before you guys got on, that Zoom keeps updating. And every time Zoom updates, it really messes up what we're doing. So, and I had the experience of in the middle of COVID, I was in the middle of a lecture and from home, of course, and all of a sudden my entire internet completely went out and it was out the whole day. So I was frozen for the entire day. And at the end of the day, at a little after 5 o'clock, I get this lovely email from Xfinity Comcast saying, "We really hope you like the upgrade we provided for you today." So, it's challenging, it's frustrating. Even if you think you know how to do it or you're good with technology, it can still be frustrating. And for older adults, it isn't, sometimes feels like an insurmountable barrier for them. So the idea behind it, again, is to not only support these older adults, but also to help with networking with community resources. You are a great example of our anonymous resources, and for you to help us recruit and train additional mentors, and to help find the mentees who could benefit from this program. And then we also are in process, and you'll see this as we go along, of developing online teaching and support modules. And why are we doing this? Well, it's pretty self-evident, right? We all know that if you're older and you're struggling with technology, you're also struggling with the aging process. And many of you on this call already know that what happens as we age. There may be some mild cognitive impairment, there may be visual impairments, hearing, sensory, all these things are happening with older adults while they're trying to master something that feels very foreign and complex to them. So we really want to address those barriers that they do have in common. And we know, we actually have a user experience usability testing lab. We know from researching with older adults in their use of technology that very few apps, devices, anything are designed with older adults in mind. We know and we see every day the problems that these older adults are facing with something as simple as a microwave oven. It can be any kind of technology, and it's just really not good. We also know, and you guys probably are very aware of the aging demographics around the world. In 2024, for the first time in the world's history, there will be more people over 65 than under 18. That is, and it's just the X's on the graphs just keep going the opposite direction. So we are an aging world. And by 2050, India will be the youngest country in the world. And I think that is really interesting. So what is happening in industry is really getting on board, and they're really interested in developing and retooling how they design their products. But the engineers that are designing weren't trained to work with older adults. So it's this kind of mix up we're all working our way through. And a lot of it, and I think it was Mike that mentioned the technical jargon and terms are really challenging if these are new words for your vocabulary. So we want to really take a look at that and figure out how we can reframe things so it makes sense for older adults. And as I mentioned, these physical, sensory, or cognitive challenges. And so Viral, a great point, not only with proprioception or sensory feeling in our fingers potentially, but also as we age, the capacitance or the electrical signals from our fingers decreases. Guess what enables you to touch a tablet and activate a button is that capacitance. And so that also slows down as we age. And so you see older adults pounding on the tablet as an example, and then all kinds of things go wrong, right? So those are some just little pieces and parts. We also know that for a lot of older adults, and there's some really good research in the Netherlands around this, that internet concerns can lead to significant tech anxiety. Doing your banking, talking to a doctor, buying groceries online can be very intimidating because they hear, all these stories about somebody being scammed, or just understanding passwords and protection and security are a really big deal. You're going to hear a lot from us about security and privacy throughout this little training activity that will be in the next couple of weeks. And so the goals of this project, and this is what we submitted to the Daniels Fund to receive funding. The first is that using a train the trainer model, so we train you and hopefully you train other tech mentors. We're going to provide intensive training and ongoing support to older adults across Colorado to support their peers with tech, starting with you, tech-savvy technology mentors, who hopefully will recruit some of your friends to become technology coaches as well. So basically, you're like the upper echelon, and hopefully you'll help other people access our training resources and learn to become tech mentors as well. Our goal is to eventually have about 750 tech mentors across the state of Colorado through this funding that we've received from the Daniels Fund. We also want to talk about and be able to disseminate disability accessible resources that are focused on answering these practical answers for these common pain points that are experienced by older adults. And we want to have an emphasis on telehealth. So we're very excited to have Viral here because he can experiment and teach us what we need to teach older adults as well as we go through this. And our division of geriatrics in particular is really excited about this aspect because they had a nightmare experience with COVID and telehealth as well. And so then also we want to really form a ton of strategic partnerships so that we do have statewide impact. We also want to determine specific addressable gaps in technology accessibility. And that has to do with the tech itself and how to make it accessible for someone with low vision, for example, or any of the other problems that they may be experiencing so that they have a good outcome with learning to use their technology. So who is a tech mentor? You're somebody that is tech savvy and we have some solid technology experience. You use it every day, right? And so you're comfortable and confident with your use of technology. Somebody that has taught or wants to teach older adults to use technology. We love you if you have excellent communication skills, and I just saw a great wealth of that as you guys introduced yourselves, and the willingness to participate in our training sessions for this work and to take advantage of some resources that we've put together for you that I think you're going to really be happy to have access to. We obviously, a good tech mentor is understanding and has the ability to empathize. We do not feel sorry for anyone. But we do empathize with what their needs might be because we want them to be their best, right? We want you to have a good understanding, if you don't already, of internet safety and security. And we definitely want you to have connections to groups of older adults who would be interested, who you might find. It might be your neighbor. It might be a community group that you work with. You know, John, for example, you have tons of access to older adults, I think. And so we want you to be able to help us grow this activity so that we can reach as many older adults as possible. We want you to be comfortable with one-on-one and small group teaching, to be patient and have the ability to engage in active listening. And this openness to learn from your mentees as well as to teach your mentees. That's the best part. I learn more in class every day than I teach. I firmly believe that. That's the best part of teaching. And then willingness to provide feedback to us as we are developing these resources and trainings that we want you to be able to use as you go forward with either tech mentees or other folks who might want to become tech coaches. So what are we asking you to do? That's always the crux of the matter, right? So we want you to participate with us in our onboarding sessions like today. And I think we have 4 more sessions. Is that correct, Liz and Maureen? I can't remember. I didn't look. I was going to count it this morning and I forgot.
So there's 9 and they will all be recorded if they don't end up working with your schedule.
Okay, good. Thank you. 9 sessions. Okay. We would like you to use these training resources we're going to provide for you to train at least 5 mentees over time. And then certainly if you want to do more than that, we will support you 100% in your efforts. And then also when you do find a mentee, or we are also getting people requesting mentors. And so we might call you up and match you with someone or ask you if you would be willing to be matched with someone if they're in your location or where you're from. And so we would like to ask that you register the mentee with us, and we'll show you how and where to do that online as we go forward so that we can track who's receiving services, and we can also follow up with them because we do need to evaluate the impact of our training and support for older adults to see if this is working for them. Again, we're going to ask you to give us that feedback, and really help us to bring these people in and then participate in ongoing support of mentees. And we do have a session, I think it's one that I'm leading coming up, that how do you end the relationship, or do you? What do you do with that relationship you build when you've got 40 mentees that are calling you at 10 o'clock at night? How does that work? So we're going to talk about that as one of our sessions as well. We also are going to ask you, after you've had some experience with mentoring, we're going to ask you to participate in a couple of focus groups with us. We'll ask all the mentors to do this, to really give us feedback and ideas on how we can improve our work. And I will tell you, you can go online and find all kinds of resources for teaching older adults and other folks who are doing this. But what we've learned as we've investigated this very deeply is that what most of these mentoring programs lack is the awareness of the aging process, as well as the awareness of the accessibility features that are built in or that are available, and also for some folks, the need to use assistive technology to access their technology. And so we see a lot of frustrated older adults out there. So that kind of drove us to say, let's take our knowledge and skills. We've been doing this over 30 years now. How can we develop a program that really makes this work for our mentees and mentors? And Jim, who you will meet coming up in another session, is renowned for his expertise in how to make technology accessible. And so you're going to learn some tips and tricks from Jim as we go forward. So we're going to talk just briefly, and I think most of you already have this content, but just kind of if you know this, it's a good reminder. If you haven't heard some of these things, hopefully this will be some nuggets that will be useful for you. When we think about what are the essential skills we need to work with older adults and to actually teach older adults. And I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of myths out there in terms of being an older adult. That older adults can't learn, older adults aren't interested in technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we can remember that for people over the age of 65 in Colorado, they were around when we landed on the moon. They were the people who invented all of the imaging devices that we have available today that we have taken forward. They are the group that first embraced technology and infrastructure around technology. And we kind of forget that. We just think about them and our perceptions are, oh, they're old. They're not going to like this, right? That's not true. And we know this was really that first generation that embraced and grew the whole technology field. But technology has gone quickly, right? And there are people that are older that haven't used it for their personal use, or maybe they weren't involved in the tech sector as they were coming along. But this group does like technology. They like the use of the tool and what it can do for them. But if you don't know what you don't know, it's really hard to jump in. And so one of the things that we do know as folks age is that the pace of learning changes. So we have to move at a comfortable pace. And this will be a little bit of your getting to know them session, really kind of beginning to understand and asking them, how do you like to learn new information? What is it that works best for you? And so rather than going in like I do every day for class with my 20-somethings, where I have my agenda and I have my points I'm going to teach and we're going to get through this curriculum. With older adults, we need to stop, take a deep breath, step back, and try to figure out what is a pace that they can be comfortable with. Because if we overwhelm them with too much information, they're going to feel defeated and they're not going to want to come back for more. So it's okay to say, how do you typically learn new things? What works best for you? And then adjust your pace accordingly. And maybe you don't get through as much as you had hoped that day. But if they have it and they have it to a point where they truly have learned, you've been successful. So that's really important. And active listening, everybody kind of knows what active listening is, but for older adults in particular, they are often overlooked or dismissed in conversations, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's at the bank, whether it's with their family, because maybe we don't slow down enough, or maybe we don't wait for them to engage. So that notion of pregnant pauses, asking a question and waiting expectantly and looking at them. And when they respond, feeding it back a little bit, saying, oh, okay, so you really did use technology. You were using the old 25-pound IBM laptop, but it's been a while. Okay, that makes sense. Let's go forward. So that whole notion of really embodying that you are there and actively present with them is so important to older adults, even more so than younger adults. It's really an important skill set that we really want to practice throughout the training. And then prioritizing values. And what do we mean by that? You know, there's a lot of research out there as an example that for people that are tech users, for example, women use tech as a tool. You know, we just need to pay that bill. That's all we want to do, right? Whereas men in the research that's out there are like, how do I take this thing apart? How do I put it back together? You know, they go beyond just using it as a tool to accomplish a task to wanting to know how it works. And it's really interesting to read this research and go, oh, that's why, you know, but what is their value? And so for some older adults, it might very well be that there's a grandbaby out there that if they could get on FaceTime and see that grandbaby, let me tell you, they're going to really be motivated to learn. And we use an equation here that is.
Yes.
I'm going to walk up to the bridge.
Okay. So older adults, our equation that we use is that motivation has to equal or exceed cognitive and physical effort. Okay. So if cognitive effort takes too much to be able to get on FaceTime, or if, you know, the physical effort is too hard, then, and there's no motivation, then they're not going to be successful. But if the motivation is there and we can balance the cognitive and physical effort so that it's manageable, they're going to do it. So when we say values-based and prioritizing values, that's in that early stage getting to know you phase. You want to find out what matters to them. And if you can prioritize that, you can enhance their motivation and willingness to get over these barriers to learning and to be really engaged with this process of using technology. And when they get to see that grandbaby on FaceTime, they're motivated, right? And so then that next step of, well, have you ever thought that you could do your banking? Or have you ever thought about writing an email? It can be as simple as that. And that's a way to really engage them. You already know how to do this. Let's add a skill to it, right? So if we prioritize their values instead of our values as we go in, then we're going to be much more successful in our training and really acknowledging their concerns. If they're concerned, we did a test many years ago, back 28 years ago, when video conferencing was just in its infancy. It was US West Telephone Company. They asked me to do a study with older adults to see how fast the baud rate had to be for signing to be visible for older adults. Okay, so we get online, and do you know what the number one scare of the older adults, I've never forgotten this, is someone can see in my home. Someone might break in after they see me online. And so that if that's a concern, then we want to acknowledge it with empathy and not trying to override their concern, but rather, well, let's talk about ways we can make sure that doesn't happen. Let's talk about how we can ensure your safety and security, or let's figure this out. So if we acknowledge what they're concerned about, or, you know, maybe they're concerned about, well, you know, if I'm talking to my granddaughter and they see my dirty dishes, they'll think I'm not good enough to stay at home anymore. You know, you might hear something like that. It's like, well, let's show you how to blur your background so they can't see your dirty dishes. You know, what is that concern and how can we be empathetic and help them to move forward with that? Practice troubleshooting. And this is something that I love, and we call it failing forward. It's okay if you're working with them and you're struggling with something and you're having to look it up. You want to encourage them to fail forward and to get used to, it's okay. You're not going to do this right. Look, I'm messing up right now. You know, wait, I've got to figure this out. This is a difference in learning that older adults, when they went to school, when they were in their training, when they were doing things, failure was bad. right? You didn't want to fail. And today's world, my students fail every day. They're in there pounding away on their laptops, trying to figure something out in a simulation or doing whatever they're doing. They don't care if they fail because they're learning. But this is a flip in the learning environment that we love today. But in their environment, when they were learning, failing forward was not an option. You went in there with this stuff memorized. You knew what you needed to do. And so go ahead and practice that. Share with them how we think about technology, and that we often fail when we're doing something with tech. It's okay. And here's how we get out of this problem. And so that's a real important key for them. And of course, respecting boundaries and safety. We kind of already hit that 10 different ways, but what are their boundaries? So for example, we're not asking you to go into someone's home unless it's someone you're very familiar with and makes sense to you, but rather, what are the boundaries? Should we be in a public place like the senior center or the library, or where should we meet? Maybe it's a coffee shop. And what are those boundaries of this mentoring relationship? You don't become their grocery shopper. You don't have to do more than what you're doing. And we want to make sure that we really help them to understand who you are and what you're there for in a way that is respectful and kind. Okay, so there's a big old long link here, which you also received in an email. And this is the web resources that we have available. And I'm going to go to that in just a second. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to pull this up. I just want you to see this if you haven't had a chance to look at it already. So this is the secret link that you all are going to get or have gotten already. And this is where we will be storing content for your use and where you will have access to a number of materials. So we will, as Liz mentioned at the beginning, we'll be recording each session and posting it up. So when it gets into the more technical skills, troubleshooting around accessibility features, etc., that might come in handy for you to go back and re-listen to something. We'll also have printable handouts and then a self-paced practice scenario. And so you'll see these, you'll need to scroll down. There are flyers that you can download and share with, like, at your local community centers where older adults might hang out. You might be able to give to someone who also wants to become a tech mentor. So we have a little bit of that available for you. And then this branching practice scenario, and we'll have some of these available for you. This is kind of an online instructional tool that we'd really like you to explore. This is our first one, and we really want your feedback, not only on was it useful, but also did this work for you as you go through it, because it gives you choice. You'll be asked to make choices and, ABC, and then it will branch to a specific scenario to maybe provide additional instruction at times within this. So we really get feedback to say whether this worked for you or not. So that link is available to you. And then I will go back to our training. And so what do we hope for you? We hope that mentoring allows you to refine your skill sets, to learn a lot about how to make technology work for older adults, to have that experience of really have it be personally rewarding to you, so that it's really useful, and for you to connect and get to know some amazingly interesting people. So that is my spiel for today, and I wanted to leave a little bit of time within this hour to see if you guys had any questions, comments, or concerns. Oh, Glenda, can you unmute?
Can someone realistically perform these tasks with a full-time job and, just other things in life? I just want to hear kind of what, kind of how this commitment is, how the commitment works out, how it unfolds.
Yes. What we would like you to do is to self-pace this for your life. So for example, you may wish to only work with one person at a time, and maybe you commit to an hour on Saturday, or maybe it's really based, it has to be based on your lifestyle, or you're not going to want to do it, right? Our goal is that each of our tech mentors will train at least 5 people over time. So that's useful. But we don't expect you to do it all at once. We don't expect you to overload yourself. We don't want you to overload yourself. We want this to be as rewarding for you as it is for us, you know, to see this unfold. So we really would encourage you to self-pace and determine what works best for you.
Sure.
Does that make
Thank
sense?
you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments, thoughts?
I have a question.
Sure, Jackie.
Thanks. So I'm an assistive technology specialist in the school, so I might not have access a lot to that population, but I've used to work with them when I was in the medical field. So I'd be open to when you guys have like referrals or a group of people.
Yes.
I could do that, or I can maybe reach out to my families to see if they have any elder parents or things like that. But just whatever I can do in that alternate route, just let me know.
Yeah.
Happy to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we are registering, just kind of opening it up. We just started getting the flyers out in the last week, I guess, to start recruiting mentees. So hopefully if there's a match in your community, you know, we can work on that with you and get you connected with someone. Because I have a feeling once the word gets out, we're going to have a lot of people contacting us and asking for a mentor. We're sort of nervous about that. So we're gonna be pushing this mentor recruitment very quickly so that we can get as many of you trained as possible and ready to go.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
You are welcome.
And Kathy, this is Maureen. Connie couldn't unmute, but when we were introducing, she typed in the chat that she's a former AT instructor with DVR.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, we're so happy to have her, and she's happy to be here. So that's awesome.
Thank you. That is really cool. And we just met with DVR yesterday. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're starting training with them again. So for those of you that don't know, DVR is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And they work with working age adults in need of a job. And they help to place them, providing the accommodations, modifications. They do wonderful work. And so we've worked with DVR for decades. And so, yeah, it's really a fun relationship. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
One question and one comment. So I looked at my schedule and a weekly the series, and I feel like I'm going to miss about 2 or 3. Okay. So I will be non-compliant a little bit. Is that okay?
Yes, because we're going to record the trainings, okay, and we'll post them so that you can go back and watch them on your schedule. And then if you have any questions, like if it's one of the technical ones where Jim is teaching accessibility features and how to set them up, you know, reach out to us and we'll make sure that we support you along the way. And I know, just knowing your patient population, for example, this will really help you help them. And it's something that for our other project might be thought-provoking.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And this comment is that, you know, you very well actually mention about the communications with older adults, but I work in a specific population of older adults with diabetes. And just from my experience that the older adults are not understanding you and they have diabetes, most likely that they have hypoglycemia. So in that case, what we generally suggest is that, would you mind checking your blood glucose? Or if they are using CGM, can you show me, you know, what's your glucose on the CGM? And if it's below 70, give them a juice, wait for 5-10 minutes before you talk. Otherwise, nothing goes inside the brain. So that's just the one comment from my side.
I'm so glad you said that. That is really, we're going to rely on you. That is a really good example. It's a really good example. Yeah. And I love that. I'm also hoping to get one of our geriatric physicians on board as well. I'm talking with one of them because those things happen. Some people just get confused periodically, and just need to take a break and go forward. But that with the diabetics, that's a really good insight. So hopefully we're all going to be learning from each other as we go forward. And really, we want you to contribute to the knowledge because we don't know it all. And we really want you to teach us more than we teach you before it's all over. All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
This is John. Let me add to what Varl was suggesting. Diabetes is definitely an issue, but seniors, for the most part, because I'm 82 years old and I have a lot of contact with that age group, are challenged both in terms of vision, speech, mobility, and a variety of medical problems.
Yes.
Many of them are suffering from dementia. And I think we need to be very sensitive to the world that they live in, because sometimes it's closing in on them and they feel confused and uncertain about their own future. Many of them are challenged in terms of finances, housing, food shortages. And so there are many issues related to the aging population that people who are younger by a generation or two simply are totally unaware of what that particular geriatric generation is actually experiencing.
John, that is so well said. Thank you. And that is when I talk about like the accommodations, modifications, all that kind of stuff, we're going to get into, for example, the various types of disability like vision loss, motor impairment, that kind of thing in this training, and try to show you some of the tools that can be useful to accommodate for those issues. And I think also your point about food insecurity, financial, those things that's so well said. And that does play into even things like cognitive function. If you're really worried about whether you should turn your heat on or not, that emotional component can really influence your learning capability, So yes, thank you so much. That was so well said. All right. Would you guys like to go on for today? So as a reminder, please go to the web link, complete the instructional video thingy, and we'll be asking for your feedback on how that went for you. And that this first one is really looking at values-based teaching. And then we'll see you again at our next training, which is, what is today? Thursday? What's our next one? Someone? I don't have my calendar up.
Tuesday.
Right now.
Tuesday the 4th.
Same time, same link?
Yes.
All right. So we'll be back next Tuesday and we'll start to dive into the details. So thank you so much for volunteering. We are thrilled to have you.